It's Wednesday, and you all know what that means. It's time for another episode of the Life in the Movies podcast. I'm one of your co hosts. My name is Ryan Cam. Thank you all so much for tuning in this week. Well, I guess Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny has crashed into the side of a mountain, and we're going to be examining the black box. Now, this is not going to be a review, as Jacob has not seen the movie yet, but it has only made $60 million on a $300 million budget. So, yeah, that's not good. We're going to be talking about that, and we'll be continuing our Iron Fist coverage. But first, I have to introduce my co host, Jacob Martin. Jacob, how are you?
I am doing really good. Thank you, as always, for having me on every week for this podcast. Life's been going pretty good. It's been a week since I've started dating. It's still pretty good. Helped out with Vacation Bible School last week. That was a fun experience, and I'm just enjoying life one day at a time. And it's been real good.
Yeah, like I said on the stream, congratulations on the relationship. I'm very happy for you. I hope that pans out.
Yeah, it's been very exciting. We've had some great conversations, and it's been moving along very smoothly. I'm very excited about where that leads.
Yeah, I hope it leads I hope it is very promising for you. But I think we should dive into some things we've been watching lately. So Jacob, you've seen anything interesting lately?
I did rewatch Mission Impossible Rogue Nation in my continued run up to Dead Reckoning Part One coming out. I think it's coming out next weekend, if I'm not mistaken. I'm excited about seeing that movie. But anyway, I did rewatch Rogue Nation. That was the first of the Mission Impossible films directed by Christopher McQuarrie, who has done a fantastic job. To date, the only director to helm more than one Mission Impossible movie, and I can see why, because he and Tom Cruise make a great team. I think this movie has some of my favorite action set pieces in the entire Mission Impossible franchise. This, of course, is the one where Tom Cruise is dangling from the side of an airplane, and he actually did that while it was going high up in the air. And that stunt still impresses me even years later. Even the smaller scale action in this movie, like there's this really intense scene at an opera house that's just built on tension and not knowing what's going to happen next, because there's different people walking in trying to assassinate this chancellor character, and you don't know who to trust in that moment. And so Ethan Hunt and then Simon Pegg's Benji character have to rely on their wits to figure out what's actually going on. And it is such a mesmerizing, masterful sequence, and arguably the best scene in the entire movie. Rebecca Ferguson is the new addition in this movie, and I loved her performance and her character as Ilsa Faust. I think she went toe to toe with Tom Cruise and was a scene stealer in this movie. There's a lot of great action in this movie. I think this movie, though, I don't think this movie has like probably a top tier villain with the Solomon Lane. I felt like he was interesting enough, and I felt like he served his purpose in this movie. And to be fair, they brought him back in Fallout, and I thought he was more memorable in that movie. So the movie definitely delivered, I guess, on that on a story level. I think I prefer Fallout and Ghost Protocol over Rogue Nation, but Rogue Nation is still one of the best films in the Mission Impossible franchise.
Yeah, this movie it goes so hard so often. I'll never forget seeing in the theater for the first time the like Tom Cruise like just hanging off of that plane. And I'm sure they controlled it as much as possible, but just seeing this grown man just hanging off the side of the plane, like, Benji, that's the wrong door. That's the wrong door. And Jeremy Renner's like, Benji, you opened the wrong door. I'm like, what are you guys doing? You are like your top man is hanging off the side of an airplane. Like, what kind of crap show are you running here? But that's the IMF for you. They, as they literally say, hope is pretty much their only strategy. like in Fallout, like John Lark is like, hope is not a strategy. And Rebecca Ferguson's like, oh, you're new around here, huh? I love that line so much. But yeah, my favorite is still Ghost Protocol. However, Rogue Nation, I think, like ups the ante in a sense that like it just like it it oddly fits. Like the scene where Ethan has to dive into that safe to get it's the underwater safe, and he has to hold his breath for like 5 minutes, I believe it is.
I think it
I'm
is. It's actually three.
Oh, it's 3 minutes, but even still, I was just like, whoa. So it's like just jaw-dropping stuff, but it's all handled so well. Christopher McQuarrie is just an excellent director.
Yes, for sure. And then other movies I've recently watched. I revisited the first Extraction movie from 2020. I'm about to watch Extraction 2. I need to check that movie out. As of this recording, I haven't seen Extraction 2 yet, but I wanted to rewatch the first movie to better prepare myself. I felt like to me, it's one of those movies to where the action is the saving grace of the movie, and Chris Hemsworth is absolutely terrific in it. But the story itself is very generic. It doesn't really do anything new or noteworthy in anything, but the movie does have great action, and Chris Hemsworth is a good leading man, and it's still an enjoyable enough action film for what it is. Another movie I've recently watched just for fun, I think for an upcoming Silvering Disney video, I decided to watch The Absent Minded Professor, which is the original version of a movie Disney remade in the 90s starring Robin Williams with Flubber. The original film stars Fred McMurray as the absent minded professor who creates the flying rubber, betterwise known as Flubber. I don't have near as much nostalgic connection for the original. I have more of a nostalgic connection for Flubber with Robin Williams. But the original is a decent enough family comedy for what it is. The visual effects were solid for the time. Fred McMurray is a likable, charming lead. The movie is enjoyable to watch. It does have some funny moments. Hilarious, over the top villain. It definitely feels like your standard, typical 1960s live action Disney comedy. Not inherently a bad thing. I think it's a good family viewing, but I don't think it's a top tier Disney movie or anything. And another movie I checked out for the first time recently on Netflix is A Man Called Otto, starring Tom Hanks. And I really like this movie. Tom Hanks is fantastic as the Otto character. The film, I think the trailer is a little bit deceptive, as the trailer makes it more of a comedy, but it's a lot more dramatic than it actually is. It tackles some heavy stuff in this movie, particularly suicide, but it still told its story very effectively. Tom Hanks is fantastic in the title character. His growth as a character from being a grump to somebody who regains humanity again, I thought was very compelling at times. I don't think the movie needed its flashbacks though. I think the flashbacks, I felt like I was watching a different movie as far as the way it was directed and styled, and these other actors I don't think fit those parts as well. But as a whole, I really enjoyed the film. I thought Tom Hanks was terrific, and the film does have a ton of heart. And those are some of the movies I've watched in the past week.
Yeah, Man Called Otto is like a big old bowl of chicken soup for the soul. It's just very heartwarming stuff. Uh, yeah, the trailer was a bit odd because I've actually read A Man Called Ove, the book that A Man Called Otto was based on. It's a dark book, like it really is. It has a happy ending, but it is a dark book. Like Otto basically has no will to live. Like he basically, the reason for him living was his wife, and she is passed on. So it's like, what's even the point anymore? Which is just a very depressing prospect, but it is what it is. And I think Tom Hanks did a really good job. Uh, I let me look up the actress's name because I want to make sure I get her right. But the woman who plays the neighbor,
The neighbor.
I thought she was very good. Her name is Mariana Trevino. She was
Yeah,
very good, and I hope
yeah,
she gets more work after this.
yeah, she was awesome in the film. I really liked her character.
Yeah, I did as well. And yeah, like I said, very dark movie, but also a very like affirming movie, for lack of a better word. It's been a hit at the library, I will say that. Um, Flubber Goes, or Absent Mind Professor, saw it a very long time ago. It's been a while. I've seen Flubber, the one with Robin Williams, like a lot of times. Like that movie has Christopher McDonald as the villain. I mean, that's a win right there. And you got Will Wheaton as like the son of like a rich guy, and like he's insufferable. I guess Will Wheaton was just born to play roles like that. Yeah, that's a isn't it's a very interesting movie. I'll just leave it at that. But I haven't seen any of the Extraction movies. I I do have Netflix. I should get on top of that because I've heard actually pretty good things about them.
Yeah, and hopefully by the time we do the next podcast, I'll have watched Extraction 2.
Yeah, because I've actually heard surprisingly good things about that as well.
Yeah,
Which,
my dad actually over this past weekend watched both of the Extraction movies, and he said the second one was even better.
oh wow. Well, well, as far as what I've watched this week, it's kind of a mix of old and new. Saw Asteroid City in the theater, and I'm very behind on my review for that, but I will include it in my cinema catch-up review later on this week. It was a mixed bag. On the one hand, the movie was gorgeous. The cast was great. Basically, there's a choice made, and Jacob, I know you're probably going to see this,
I
right?
pro- as a Wes Anderson fan, I will at some point.
So I won't say anything plot wise, but a choice is made I just was not a fan of. They basically, I don't think I can even say that, but there's a decision made that just really didn't sit well with me. Basically, in Wes Anderson's most recent string of movies, like from Grand Budapest Hotel up to now, he's had a real problem with focusing up his narrative, like and choosing like one story to stick with. He has like two or three great ideas, and he tries to flesh out all three of them, and it gets real muddled and confused. Not to the point of being unwatchable. I just wanted him to like just pick one, pick a lane, and stay in the lane. Same thing happens in Asteroid City. Just like pick a lane, stick in that, and it would have been fine. But it was frustrating. But movie looked technically fantastic. Robert Yeoman did it again.
Yeah, I've heard mixed things about Asteroid City. I know I saw was it your friend Rachel? I saw she kind of had a debate on Twitter today where she said most overrated movie of the year, and some people thought her tweet made it sound like Wes Anderson fans are stupid or something. I'm like, nah, it was probably taken out of context.
Definitely, because Rachel would never say something like that. But then I'm kind of doing this thing where I'm watching like older action movies from like the way deep distant past. I don't know. I'm just trying to broaden my adventure movie knowledge. So first up, I watched Moby Dick from 1956, directed by John Huston and starring Gregory Peck. This is based on the legendary novel written by Herman Melville. It's about Captain Ahab trying to find the white whale known as Moby Dick, who took his leg, and will go to any lengths to do it. This movie is is weird in certain ways because if you look at it and you watch it, it is clearly made in black and white. However, I researched it later and come to find out the movie was actually shot in black and white, but director John Huston colorized certain film reels to make it look like you were looking at old nautical paintings. So you could see like whale watching and whale fighting like on wood in certain scenes. So it's made to look like that. It's a very unique look for the time, especially in 56 when color was still a relative novelty in Hollywood. It wasn't the norm. It was like the odd, like, oh, it's in color, go see it. The standard was black and white for a really long time. Gregory Peck is very creepy as Ahab. Like, Gregory Peck is just one of the best ever. Like, you go from something like Boys from Brazil to Kill a Mockingbird, something like Moby Dick. The dude had range. That's my point. There's a speech he gives in, like, on this boat where I'm like, yeah, there's obsession and there's whatever you are. Like, the dude will sacrifice anything, any resource, any kind of fiscal responsibility to get this whale. He has one singular purpose, and he will go to the death, and he does, in order to accomplish that. Orson Welles is also in the movie as a priest for one entire scene, but it's honestly pretty great. The movie's actually fun in parts, but it's also really dark in parts. So I don't know what the history of like Moby Dick movies are, but I think this is the best one. I know there was one called In the Heart of the Sea with Chris Hemsworth. I have not seen it. I've heard mixed things. It was directed by Ron Howard. So I have not heard good. It's been mixed, but I want to check it out.
Yeah, I've not seen In the Heart of the Sea. My sister saw it one time, mainly because she really likes Chris Hemsworth, but she told me it was really boring and she didn't get much out of it. I have seen the Moby Dick movie that you watched with Gregory Peck, and easily the best thing about it is Gregory Peck. Like, he completely owns the role of Captain Ahab. I definitely agree that he has range. I do think the film is slow and boring at times. Like, to me, the only standout parts in the film are the speech with Orson Welles as the priest, and then the end when Moby Dick faces no, when Captain Ahab faces Moby Dick at the very end of the movie, and you see Gregory Peck go mad in the end. Those are like the only two things that really stand out to me. But I think for its time, I think it was a technically brilliant movie. It's just not one that's like really resonated with me, and the film's just okay at best, I feel like.
Yeah, legit Gregory Peck could just, like I said, the range he had. He went from something like Roman Holiday, this kind of romantic movie starring Audrey Hepburn, to The Omen, where he literally gives, like, he fathers the devil, or like the son of the devil. So, yeah, he goes from that to, like, say, Cape Fear, and then back to, like, say, The Guns of Navarone. So, Gregory Peck, he's an all-timer. Like, that goes without saying, but he's an all-timer. I have not logged this on my Letterboxd yet. I will get to it, but I rewatched The Adventures of Robin Hood, and this movie rocks. Like, it's from like the 30s. It still holds up so very well today. It's in beautiful color. The sets are just lush. Errol Flynn was just born to play Robin Hood. Basil Rathbone was born to play Guy of Gisborne, and just the dialogue sequences between those two are just phenomenal. The movie's funny and silly at times, but it can also be very serious, and it pulls all of it off well. Olivia de Havilland is excellent as the Maid Marian. Just, I could talk about this movie for hours and hours and hours. It's the best Robin Hood movie, and it hasn't even come close. Like, there has been like no Robin Hood movie. Maybe Prince of Thieves has come close, the one from the 90s with Kevin Costner, but there has been no better Robin Hood movie that I've personally ever seen.
Yeah, I don't think Kevin Costner's nowhere close to matching Errol Flynn. As much as I enjoy that movie, Kevin Costner was horribly miscast in an otherwise really good Robin Hood movie. But as for the Adventures of Robin Hood, it's definitely probably the most iconic Robin Hood movie. Errol Flynn is the definitive Robin Hood for sure. Definitely has some impressive action for the time. I love the color cinematography. I especially love the sword fight with Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone. That was one of the many old sword fights that was inspiration for the lightsaber duels in Star Wars. So I have to give it major props for that. I love the classic score. Olivia de Havilland's awesome. Claude Rains as Prince John's pretty good. And like I said, Basil Rathbone's an awesome villain. This is just one of those classic action adventure movies that, people always say the phrase, they don't make them like they used to, and you can watch The Adventures of Robin Hood, and you're like, yeah, I think I can see where they're coming from, but it's a good movie.
Yeah, absolutely. And shout out to Basil Rathbone. Like between that and Sherlock Holmes, he played in serials and in movies. Like the dude is an actor that I don't think it's nearly talked about enough. And he's just one of those actors that just he was so cool. And I don't think anyone will ever top him.
Yeah.
Another one that I forgot to log, and I will get on top of that, I promise. I'm kind of on the side, slowly going to go through Mel Brooks's films because I've only seen like his famous parody ones and haven't seen all of them, but I will correct that. I watched the first film he ever directed the other night, The Producers. Now, this was turned into a musical, which starred Nathan Lane and Matthew Broderick. That movie was good too. This is the original movie that the musical was based off of. If you've never heard of the movie, it's basically Zero Mostel, a legendary character actor, like he was great, plays a very sleazy Broadway producer named Max Bialystock. He used to be big, but at this point, he basically has implied sex with older women to get money to fund his various plays. And the money is running dry. But then he meets a very scared accountant played by a debuting Gene Wilder. And Gene Wilder's character comes up with the idea of you can make more money with a flop than with a hit. And so they discover probably the worst Broadway play of all time, Springtime for Hitler. They get the worst cast, the worst director, the worst, like everything. And it somehow turns into a hit. So it's literally the law of opposites. And yeah, this movie is so funny. It's so funny. You could never make something like it today because it would be PC policed to death. But it's not recognizing the fact that it's commentary on no matter how like bizarre you make it, like people are going to it's a surprisingly deep movie, and Mel Brooks was way ahead of his time in that. Zero Mostel and Gene Wilder are awesome together. There's so many other actors here that are great character actors, but I feel like no one talks about them anymore. I want to get the name of this actor right because he plays the original author of the play. Hang on, I'm getting his name up here. It is where is it? Where is it? Where is it? It is Kenneth Mars. He plays Franz Liebkind, who wrote the original play, and he was Triton in The Little Mermaid. So yeah, that dude had range too. So yeah, the producers, if you've seen the musical and you have not seen this movie, the one that inspired it, see this movie. It's very good.
Yeah, I have seen both versions of the producers. I enjoy both of them, but the Mel Brooks original is definitely the superior one. I think it's a lot funnier, it's a lot sharper, and I think it has a lot more heart as well. I definitely agree with you on the Kenneth Mars. I think he's an underrated actor. I especially love his role in Young Frankenstein, where he's like he plays like the constable in that film with the mechanical arm, and he's going Brit, when he has like the funny voice.
Oh yeah, that's great. Young Frankenstein is one I'm itching to rewatch. I've seen it, but I haven't seen it in a while. It's just it kills me every time with Gene Wilder and Peter Boyle. The it's so good.
Oh man, Mel Brooks has so many hilarious movies. Like Young Frankenstein is one of his best. Blazing Saddles, which is probably his most politically incorrect movie of all time, but it is absolutely hilarious. Every single joke in that movie lands. I love it.
The
And
sheriff is near.
where are all the white women at?
Never mind that shit. Here comes Mungo.
And then they sit around the campfire and then they're like farting and eating all the beans.
More beans, Mr. Ed? I'd say you've had enough. My dad and I laugh our heads off every time at that scene.
And then I think Spaceballs is probably my personal favorite.
Oh yeah, that movie is so funny. Like if like I know Mel Brooks is like in his 80s or 90s now, but if he were to
He
make
just
like a
turned 97.
oh wow, God bless him. But if he decided to make like something like that today, oh man, he'd have so much material to work with.
Oh, for sure. I'm surprised he never went and made Spaceballs 2, The
The
Search for
search
More
for more
Money.
money. I'm just saying there is plenty of material there. But
Yeah. I mean, you could make fun of like the sequel trilogy or the prequel trilogy or the toxic fandom.
yeah, like I said, tons and tons and tons of material for days. And then to top things off, I saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. I have a spoiler-free review on the channel. Cheap plug on Thursday of this week, which is tomorrow. I will be joined by Jacob Collins from 3D Movie Cinema. We're going to be doing a spoiler discussion of this movie because he liked it. I didn't like it. So it's going to be very interesting. And sticking with Jacob Collins, Jacob Martin, myself, and Jacob Collins will be teaming up to review, or not review, but watch another Nicolas Cage movie, hopefully not as bad as Vampire's Kiss, Bad Lieutenant. So stay tuned to Jacob Collins' channel for that. But yeah, what have you all been watching lately? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, let's get into Iron Fist. Iron Fist season 1 episode 8 called The Blessing of Many Fractures. That's not a kung fu move. What is this? Danny faces his fear, and Colleen meets her match. Joy makes a hasty decision while Ward struggles to accept his sister's admiration. So yeah, Fenrir's dead now, and Ward and Joy are both out at Rand. We got a Jessica Jones reference. I don't know, Jacob, if you caught that or not, but yeah, this was definitely an episode of two halves. Anything involving Danny and Hope, I liked. Anything involving Joy and Ward and the diet succession that was going on there, I wasn't a fan. What did you think?
I cannot agree with you more. This was an episode of two halves. The stuff involving Danny Rand, where he travels to China to learn more about what's going on, what the truth about what happened to his parents, that was investing. I enjoyed, like, again, the action in there was pretty good. There was some good tension, and I was intrigued on where some of the decisions Danny was going to make, whether he had full control of his power or not, or whether he was going to let his rage take over and uh, let that get the better of him for better or worse. Like that there was some, maybe nothing anything mind blowing because it's like familiar tropes, but at least for this show, and at least I was engaged in it. However, like you said, Ryan, the B plot with Joy and Ward, I just did not care about it. Like it cut away from some of the tension of the Danny storyline. And these characters don't really talk with Danny that much to where I'm like, why is this still a big factor in the show? And a part of me thinks killing off the Harold character was a big mistake because I really was intrigued by that character. And I just don't really care for the whenever Joy has plans and the continued downward spiral of Ward as he's slowly losing his mind pretty much. I The character was always unlikable from the beginning, and the show did not do a single thing to gain an ounce of sympathy for this character. Whereas, if you remember in the flashback, in the very opening episode, even as a kid, he was still an unlikable jerkbag. So it's hard to gain an ounce of sympathy for this character. It's another frustrating episode. It has its moments, but it has its lows. So I'm kind of in the middle on this one.
Yeah, bless this show for trying to make me care about Ward Meacham, but like here's the smallest violin for Ward right here and right now. So like yeah, I have no sympathy for this person whatsoever, especially in the last episode where he literally said the best day of his life was when his dad died. So like uh, um 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 I don't even know. Like I don't even know
I
what
mean,
world we're living in anymore.
I mean, if we get like full context of why he hates his dad, and if he has a valid reason for it, I could see where he was coming from. But there's no context as to that. We don't know what his dad was like before he died the first time, and it just seeing him act this erratic and irresponsible and continuing to go on downward spiral, it is not working out for this show. And if there's any character I'm just waiting to see killed off in any way, it's the Ward character. That's the character that I'm the most frustrated with.
For sure. And like I said, there is a Jessica Jones reference that I actually did appreciate because we later learned that pretty much all of the board of Rand are either having affairs or they're stealing money from the company. Real stand-up business we got going on there in that company. But when Joy said, hired a private investigator, she was worth every penny when she was sober. I'm like, I understood that reference. So yeah, that was nice and not bringing too much attention to it, but kind of interconnecting everything. Not like Claire Temple is like, I still exist. I'm the connecting thread in all of this. And I'm like, yes, Claire, now please, like, we want to get to more interesting things, please.
Yeah, I actually the Jessica Jones reference kind of went over my head. I kind of forgot she was in the same universe, if I'm being honest. But hey, it's still a smarter reference than whatever they're having the Claire character do on this show, because she's just exposition 101 on this show.
Yeah, and Claire literally is like she goes with Joy and Danny over to China with them. I'm like, Claire, you're a nurse, but you have no experience in any
Like,
form of martial arts.
yeah,
You're literally the best friend. It's like you have no purpose in this other than to say we got to make the defenders work, so here she is like just have Danny and Joy just like go off by themselves because Danny is literally Iron Fist. He is qualified for this, and Joy is like a badass karate instructor, and she can kick all kinds of ass. So one of these things is not like the other. One of these things doesn't belong. I'm like, people, what are we doing?
yeah, this it's definitely not near as organic as in phase one when Nick Fury kept showing up and when Agent Coulson kept showing up. Like whenever those characters showed up in those phase one movies, I'm like, okay, it's cool seeing these characters show up. They're there at the appropriate moment where they need to be, and they help kind of bring the dots together. And that was a smarter way of doing it compared to, oh, hey, I'm here. Hey, do you remember when I did this? Do you remember when I did this? I'm going to beat you over the head with this until you accept me and join me in your group. I'm like, not working near as well on Netflix or Disney Plus now.
Yeah, it kind of reminded me of this Nostalgia Critic video where he reviewed Batman v Superman with Angry Joe and how they had Tamara as Wonder Woman just randomly be like, hello, as she like walked across the screen. That was somehow less subtle than what they do in this show. And Channel Awesome has like no budget. I don't mean to make fun. Is like their budget's like here. Netflix's at the time was like way here. So what's their excuse? But yeah, I am counting down the episodes to when we're finally done with this season. And I'm not trying to be a jerk or anything. It's just this show has just been a chore to sit through. Good moments, sure. Finn Jones, I think, more than can carry his weight as this character. But man, this has just been not been my cup of tea, Jacob.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I'm just ready to get to the Defenders and see if it was worth anything for these shows to coexist.
I mean, I have heard good things about the Defenders, so crossing the fingers and the toes that that is the case. But I pass it off to all of you. What did you all think of Iron Fist Season 1, Episode 8? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. All right, Jacob, it's main event time. We are officially at the halfway point of 2023, and this box office is operating on Looney Tunes physics. It seems like movies just can't buy any profitability, but I think it's time to narrow our focus on Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny. Now, this will not be a review, as Jacob has not seen the movie yet, like I said. So this will not be us reviewing the movie. I've seen it, but I'm not going to talk about it too deep in detail because I don't want to spoil it for Jacob because I'm not that bad of a person. But yeah, as of this recording, and I do want to pull up the exact number, but the last I checked, Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny had made only about $60 million on a $300 million budget, and that is not good. I am no box office expert. I am not Dan Merle. I am not a box office expert, but that is certainly just, that's like the wrong kind of number that you want. And it comes in the wake of just not only that, but you got The Flash, which took a 75% dip in its second weekend. And I don't have to be a box office expert to know that that is not good. Then you got Elemental, which is doing next to nothing. You hear nothing about it. And it's just really sad. Like, it's sad because, you know, movies are hard and, a lot of effort puts forth into them. But I think with Dial of Destiny, it hurts because it feels like a combination of just multiple things. I've heard, like, say it was too woke because of course that side of the internet is going to be like that. But then there are others who was like there was no marketing, there was just, I think it's just a combination of multiple things, Jacob.
Um, See, I can't vouch for the movie itself because again, I've not seen it. But hearing about its box office, especially in the wake of its opening weekend, I think I know the two big contributing factors. I know the corner, as far as like the corner of the internet that believe in that stupid go woke, go broke crap or whatever that is. I'm like, I that they want to celebrate it, but I don't think that had anything to do with it. I think most viewers are have the common sense to not go into that political nonsense. I think for me, I think the biggest attribute. Oh, before I do that, the marketing. I actually thought the marketing for this movie was pretty good compared to Disney's last release, Elemental. The trailers for this movie, I had seen the trailers quite a few times, and the trailers for the film, when I saw them, I'm like, okay, this movie did have potential to be very good. There was aspects where I had my doubts, but it looked like a really good love letter to Indiana Jones, and I was hoping, Lucasfilm would have a hit on their hands with this movie. But I think the biggest reason why this film flopped, I think it's two reasons. One, I think the big one being just there was a general lack of interest in this project for a lot of people. I know there were a lot of people like me who wanted to see a new Indiana Jones adventure. Was open to James Mangold directing and Harrison Ford committing to playing the role one last time, and hopefully it be a swan song to his character and the legacy of the franchise. But I think people were just not interested in seeing a new Indiana Jones movie. Last Crusade had probably the perfect ending to wrap up the story with Indy and his dad and Marcus Brody riding off into the sunset. Like, how great of an ending is that? And Kingdom of the Crystal Skull didn't have the best reception. I guess some people are like, "Oh man, you ruined Indiana Jones once. You're gonna ruin it again." I don't. That's not worth my time. And then I guess just the whole, just people aren't that big a fan of Lucasfilm. It's kind of like in a weird place between, you got a lot of people who didn't like the Star Wars sequel trilogy or anything Star Wars in general. The Willow show that came out, a lot of people didn't like it, and Disney pulled the plug on it and buried it. And I don't know if you can ever watch that show anymore because of cost cutting reasons or whatever. I think there's just a general like backlash against the company as a whole that people are like, okay, I didn't like this project. I didn't like this project. I didn't like this project. Why would I want to pay $10 to see a movie that's probably not going to be good? because I don't like what the main company's doing. So I think that's probably played a big factor into why people didn't go see this movie. But I think the other one is, I think the other big contributor to it not making money. You said, Ryan, this movie had a $300 million budget.
Yes, that is correct.
Uh,
According to Box Office Mojo, the movie made domestically 60 million on a 300 million. Worldwide, it's looking like 130 million, so that's slightly better, but at the same time, it's not super great either,
yeah,
especially like when theater chains and marketing and other things, they got to get their slice of the pie too.
yeah,
So
for
so
sure.
I think like you were talking about, it's multiple factors. You got Lucasfilm basically like it's in a weird place, like you said. This is not going to devolve into talking about the Star Wars sequels. Believe me, there's enough material. We could do our own separate episode of this podcast talking about that. So I will put a pin in that for right now. But none of the original creators of Indiana Jones were involved in this. Spielberg and Lucas were executive producers, which is basically fancy way of saying, like, basically said, Steve, George, we need money. And Steve was like, all right, sure, I'm going to be working on the Fablemans if you need me. And George Lucas was like, yeah, sure, there you go. I'm going to be living on my ranch with my 5 billion net worth. I actually Googled that to make sure he's worth $5 billion. That's billion with a B. It's crazy to think about. But yeah, they weren't involved in any way. And say what you want to about Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Lucas's fingerprints are all over that one. So there's at least that recognition. And then there's Crystal Skull. I defend that movie on certain occasions and in certain contexts, but man, that movie pleased no one. Like it kind of put a wet blanket on the whole franchise entirely. For some, they act like that movie doesn't even exist. It's like it ended with Indy riding off into the sunset. I read a letterbox review for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull where it was like this feels like a hallucination in Indy's head as he's in a retirement home eating jello. So that's rather mean spirited, but that's the attitude of some of the fans. This was in 2008, 15 years ago, and Harrison Ford is 80 human years old. So there's a part of me that was like, yeah, there was definitely some failure baked into the cake on this one.
Yeah, I think there was a lot to it, but I think the other reason, how in the heck did this movie cost $300 million? Now, granted, I've not seen the movie. I don't know. I'm like, what caused it the budget to go that high? I mean, like the original Indiana Jones movies, I know Spielberg, his original reason for doing Raiders of the Lost Ark, he needed a smaller movie to make after he lost money on 1941. And Raiders of the Lost Ark was made as a way to make sure he can make a film on time and keep it in check and not have it go over budget or anything crazy like that. Kind of like what happened with Jaws. And then 1941 lost a lot of money. And, Raiders of the Lost Ark was a big hit, but this movie cost $300 million. Like,
Indy.
how did that happen? I know they did there was like a de-aging sequence, and I know that's not a spoiler because they show it in the
It's
trailer.
it's in the trailer, yes.
So I know that requires a lot of crazy technical work and CGI and stuff like that. But the rest of the movie, you could have, you know, spent your money wisely with its locations and stunt work, kind of like what the John Wick movies do, and the John Wick
Mhm.
movies are highly profitable. So
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know. Aside from the de aging, I don't know how the budget went up to $300 million. Could it have been the delays in production? Could it have been COVID related? Could it have been
Like I
maybe
said,
George?
I think it's more complicated than that. I wanted to bring this up. Raiders' budget was $20 million. it was just $20 million. The Temple of Doom's budget was $28.17 million. And let me get Last Crusade's budget if I can find it. Here we go. Last Crusade's budget was 48 million, so a little higher, but still like in between 20 and 40. And then for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, that one's budget was 185 million. So again,
Yeah.
big jump for Kingdom of the Crystal Skull.
Yeah.
But Kingdom of the Crystal Skull and its box office made $790.7 million. So even after you paid everyone, it was still a nice chunk of change. So it was a profit there.
Yeah. I think if the film had, if it was at least 100 million or 100 or 150, reasonably budget your movie because it's Indiana Jones. This would have been an easy money maker, even with the skepticism people have with this movie. But no, I think it's just, I think Disney were too overconfident. They're like, James Mangold, Kathleen Kennedy, you can do whatever you want. We'll just give you as much money as we can. We like to overspend on our movies, and I think that way of budgeting, I think over budgeting, I think hopefully with this movie tanking and the Flash tanking and Elemental not doing well, hopefully this is a wake up call for studios saying, okay, we need to better budget our movies so our movies can be profitable and we don't have to make any tax write offs or anything like that.
100%. I'm consistently floored when I hear about, like, say, a movie like The Evil Dead was made for like 10 grand. And like that movie, it looks so much better than Dial of Destiny because Sam Raimi and Bruce Campbell were incredibly creative with how they spent the money because they had to be. And I want to just look this up since I brought up The Evil Dead. I want to look up Evil Dead Rises budget, which, by the way, Jacob, have you seen Evil Dead Rise? It's really good. You should see it.
I haven't gotten to see that one yet. I've heard nothing but good things about it.
It is very good. It's more than worthy. But okay, here we go. Evil Dead Rise's budget was between 15 and 19 million, and the movie made 146.5 million at the box office. So yeah, tidy bit of profit right there. So there is no excuse. There's no excuse for this, especially with someone as big as Disney. They should be better at this. But I don't know. It's a curious thing. It makes no sense. It really does. And I don't think it's one factor. It's a combination of multiple factors just coming to the surface all at once. And it's happening to a lot of movies. The Flash, like I mentioned, Elemental, like you mentioned, Jacob. And what's crazy is that, like you said, John Wick, very profitable. Those are very, they're simpler movies, but at the same time, I don't know. Like when you go from Raiders, like $20 million, like you said, Spielberg needed a smaller movie to prove that, hey, he can actually keep himself in check, to 300 million, where they're like doing all these like de-aging and all this other crap. It just feels superfluous.
Yeah, and I think between that and I think overall like lack of interest in this movie by a lot of people, I think it really put a hurting in the movie's box office, sadly. And I know, Lucasfilm has so many creative issues right now. So many Star Wars projects have been greenlit, but then they get shelved because Kathleen Kennedy and whoever's directing it has creative clashes. And it's usually, I feel like it's a knee jerk reaction whenever whatever movie this creative was involved with was not received well, or the movie didn't turn out too well. Like, for example, Patty Jenkins was supposed to direct the Rogue Squadron movie,
Not
and
anymore.
not anymore because people didn't like Wonder Woman 1984, and
Yeah.
creative differences was to blame. But I wonder if the negative reaction to that movie was part of the reason for that. And I think there was
Had to
another
be.
time the Game of Thrones guys were set to do a Star Wars film. Well, the last season, everyone hated. Goodbye, Game of Thrones guys. You're not making our Star Wars movie. And
Yeah,
James
tight.
Mangold is set to direct a Star Wars movie about the dawn of the Jedi. That's an exciting premise. I
Yeah,
am looking forward to seeing that. The question is, based on this movie's box office, the all over the place opinions on Dial of Destiny, will there be another knee jerk reaction and will James Mangold get the boot?
if the trend continues, then well, then Mangold's not long for the Lucasfilm world. But yeah, I was watching Sean Chandler's like 9 reasons why Indy 5 flopped video, which by the way you all should check out. Like Sean Chandler doesn't know who I am. I know his wife though. She's a lovely lady. But I done a couple podcasts with her. But Sean Chandler was talking about how, like, when it comes to Lucasfilm, they greenlight so much. Like, we got Star Wars this and Star Wars that. And it's like, yeah, that's not going to happen, is it? And it's not. Like, Taika Waititi's Star Wars trilogy, it looks like that's not happening. Rian Johnson's Star Wars trilogy has been in the Phantom Zone for so long that, like, it's probably not going to happen at this point. Like, Jacob, you and I might have Star Wars trilogies in the works and they're not being worked on. We don't know these things. So,
Yeah, I'm still waiting on my collector's check from Kathleen Kennedy.
for real. But it's curious you bring up Benioff and Weiss because they were like the guys. And I remember watching Collider Jedi Council when they announced it. It was like it was a big deal. Now it's like you bring up Benioff and Weiss to someone, they're like, who? So yeah, it's a dog eat dog world. And yeah, it's a shame because Dial of Destiny, I wasn't a fan of it, but I'm a fan of movies. Movies are very hard to make. There's a lot of money that goes into it. We're talking about where the money goes, but it goes to quite a few places. I don't want to come across and make like very cheap, like geeks and gamers esque points of it's like it's because they starred women. No, I'm trying not to do that. I I guess the point I'm trying to make with this whole discussion is that it's very complicated. And unless something comes out like saying with a definitive reason, then all we can do is speculate. It's like one of those things where it's like the Joker's origin story. It's preferred to be multiple choice. If you say it's one thing or another thing, the answer is probably going to be yes.
Yeah, you can have we could have like a whole series on what makes a movie flop and how can Hollywood learn to improve how to make movies and get more people to get excited about watching new movies again. I know I've seen some people do that. Some of it I feel like is based on their own bias and political ramblings, but I think there is a general, I feel like, apathy as far as modern cinema is concerned. And that's kind of sad because I like to talk about movies past, present, old, or new. Like I don't care. Like as long as the movie has good quality, I will appreciate what you're trying to do. And when you have these toxic people around that make it hard to enjoy what you're doing for fun, and for me, I take it more so as a hobby, it makes it hard to enjoy what you're doing. And it's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, and I'm not trying to start a fight with any one creator or Geese and Gamers or Critical Drinker. I'm not trying to like start a fight with them or anything of the sort. I barely watch their videos. I see like maybe one or two. I honestly think Critical Drinker, when he's not talking about like Disney or Lucasfilm, I think he has some very insightful takes. I don't know how well it's going to go over, but that's my opinion and I'm sticking with it. But their points are very cheap and just it feels very much like clickbaity. And if that is their opinion, then that's fine. But I just disagree with it, and I think that there's more to it than that. And I think that's where we can I think like you said, there is kind of an apathy, and I think that sucks. I feel like it's going to be interesting to see what happens for the rest of the year because we do have some genuinely good-looking movies coming out. We got Oppenheimer, we got Dune Part 2, which, by the way, new trailer just dropped for that, I believe, a couple days ago, Jacob. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but it's phenomenal. Go watch it. So I think that there is potential. It's just going to be interesting to see what the rest of the year brings.
Yeah, for sure. And I think between that and there are uncertainties going on in the movie industry. There's like an ongoing writer strike, and there's like threats of other strikes going on. And some people are unsure about like the AI and stuff and what that might do. Uh, it's going to be an interesting time going forward.
Yeah, for sure. But I pass it off to all of you. Have you seen Indy 5? What do you think is the cause of its failure, or if it's multiple causes? Let us know in the comments. Love to read what you have to say. As to quote my illustrious co-host, please let's make this a healthy and civil conversation. Did I get that quote right, Jacob?
I'm pretty sure you did.
All right, very good. Well, that is all for this week's episode. Thank you all so much for watching. Jacob, it's a privilege to do this with you, as always, every week. I look forward to joining you on Jacob Collins's channel to watch Bad Lieutenant. It's going to be a trip, I can tell. But as far as your channel goes, what you got cooking?
Coming up on my channel, I'm still uploading reviews from my past what I've watched live stream. I think this week I will finally upload Arca Lab on Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol. I plan on uploading a celebrating Disney review of Cars from Disney Pixar, and then I think the other review I'll probably upload is for kind of a hidden gem of a 90s comedy called Guarding Tess, coincidentally starring Nicolas Cage and Shirley MacLaine. So those are the videos I'll upload this week. Next week I'll probably do my next What I've Watched live stream. This past Saturday, or actually this coming Saturday, July 8th, me and Henry Mockingbird will do our next episode of reacting to hot takes. And Ryan, you brought up the critical drinker a few minutes ago. Well, we're reacting to a critical drinker hot take on Glass Onion. So be on the lookout for that live stream coming this Saturday. And that's just some of the stuff coming up.
Yeah, Jacob's channel's linked in the description. Go give him a subscribe. As for this channel, it's going to be rather busy. I've got my cinema catch-up video for Q2 of 2023, reviewing the movies I have yet to cover that I wanted to talk about for everything from April through June. So be on the lookout for that. And then my top 5 favorite movies of the year so far, that will also be up. And then I will be reviewing the new release of, let me check. I don't want to say it's Mission Impossible because that is next week. That will be either Joyride or Insidious: The Red Door. I have not seen all the Insidious movies, so I think it's going to be Joyride. It's going to be interesting because I'm not a big fan of Point Grey's movies, but I'm hearing good things, so here's to hoping. But that's coming to the channel all this week. Thank you all so much for watching. For Jacob Martin, my name is Ryan Cam. We will see you in the next one. You all take care.